Hello to everyone that's joining us live today, and hello to those that may be listening to the recording. We have a tremendous guest with us today that I'll briefly introduce here in a minute. Ever so quickly, my name is Si. I'm a coach and a consultant, if you will. I focus on transformation, over 4 decades of working with organizations and hundreds of organizations, thousands of individuals and teams and what have you. And one of the core things that I focus on is really human nature, reality, people's identity, and their awareness to integrate those for having an impact, a positive impact in the world. And that is very much the backdrop of our guest today, to be quite honest. I have to mention a few things, and I'll introduce her here in a minute and then have her join us. In particular, she has been participating on a number of panels around the art of war. So definitively, our conversation today is very, very much personalized to her, and I want her to take us wherever she will take us. And I assure you, it will be wonderful places that we'll go as we'll get into the conversation. Ever so briefly, I met Cynthia ages ago, and I have to tell you just a little bit of her background, and we'll elaborate when she joins us. She comes with a tremendous amount of experience, very accomplished as a both business and a technology professional. Over 3 decades of work across numerous industries, in particular telecommunications, pharmaceuticals, and the retail industries. There's a lot of magic that she brings forwards, if you will. Her ability to work with multiple disciplines to help them integrate and really manage that sort of cross-functional lines that commonly divide people in organizations. She helps them integrate in that way. She likewise mentors leaders and teams and fosters an environment where people can truly contribute from their authentic self. That magic and rare ability is profound. And to be very honest about it, I sensed it very, very quickly when I met her. And I'm sure she'll tell you how quickly I sensed it. Likewise, she's very keen and extremely adept at asking penetrating questions, detecting, if you will, unstated assumptions, being able to bring those forward in the most respectful way, and really help people manage conflict with many, many diverse personalities. To be very blunt about it, I've seen Cynthia do magic, and anyone that has worked with her has likewise seen her do magic, and I'm sure those that are working with her currently and in the future will say the same. With all due respect to our audience, I know I've not done her justice. Cynthia, welcome, 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 my good friend.
Thank you, Si, for that beautiful introduction. If I could add, just on a personal note, a transformation coach that I am not only spans on the professional side, but on the personal side. I love working with the youth and the young adults, helping them to change their perspective, get into their thinking, and challenge them in that area. And I think it's my give back, my contribution to equip them with the tools necessary to navigate their thought life and give them the advantage of the strategies like the art of war.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I'm happy to be here.
It's so good to have you. So you really honed in on something very, very specific that I need to ask you about, because I picked up on it, and you just said it. When I initially met you, the immediate thing I picked up on is your desire to give back. Your desire to give back. It's not about what you want. It's always about you wanting to give. Can you say more, if you don't mind, on just what causes that energy?
It goes back to maybe the start of my career. I had the opportunity to take a leadership training, 5 days, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, when it was actually a training for 7 days. And you came out with your mission statement. And I still have that mission statement to this day. But one of the key factors is that never leave a person in a state that I found them in. And so I'm always looking to contribute at a one-on-one level. And just, if you come across my path, know that I'm not going to allow you to stay in the state that you're in if it's not benefiting you and getting you where you want to go. So that's the originating of how I came to be how I am. And yeah, I carry it everywhere I go.
And you live it. And quite honestly, I'm reflecting on the people that I know that have encountered you in our journeys as we've taken it. And all of them have detected that willingness to give, that humanity, that passion for giving, and likewise the struggles that one goes through in trying to be their authentic self. So thank you for being who you are.
You know, I think it's interesting because while I see the youth as an opportunity to give back, I care for my dad, who's 91, and my mom is 88. And while they're in two separate households, just helping them is like from one spectrum to the other, but helping them navigate their mindset as well. Because, you know, as seniors, you know, you go through a whole lot of different phases, and just how you give meaning to life's experiences has a direct reflection on how you're going to live out, you know, your days. And so from the youth being able to get up in their heads early on, and then from my parents to be able to keep them, you know, forward thinking and not getting pigeonholed in some meanings that they might have given things from the past. So I love the work spans, not just on a professional side, but on a personal side as well.
Yeah. So there's no, and that's the beautiful thing, is you are who you are authentically. There is not a divide between your personal and professional in a way that fragments, which is very, very powerful. As we would say in relative to the art of war, that is being whole, quite honestly, is to integrate those aspects. So beautifully expressed. It's such a pleasure to have you. So my good friend, in your own words, what does the art of war mean to you? What is it all about to you?
A brief summary would be, it made me a better leader, a better human. I am who I am because I've allowed it to take root in me and to naturally just be. And so I feel empowered. I feel terrified at times, only because of the uncertainty, the unknown, the world we live in, okay, can be terrifying. Mm-hmm. And the art of war, I'm empowered because the sage commander is the one that has the courage to show up despite what's going on around you, despite what you know and what you don't know. Like, and so the art of war has really equipped me to be able to navigate life. You know, we live in a chaotic world, and it's ever changing. And so if you're not okay with change, you can be a casualty. You could be a casualty and do yourself harm.
And I love the way you're expressing, because it's not only the potential of the world or the world causing us harm by us either putting ourselves in harm's way, but we do ourselves harm.
The thinking, unintelligent thinking, we cause our own suffering. Because suffering is not in the world outside. Like, you don't see birds suffering or flowers comparing themselves to each other. You know, like, suffering is a human thing, you know, and it's directly related to our thinking. We cause our own suffering. And so the art of war is allowing me to navigate the unknown and be present.
Beautifully expressed. So share with us a little bit more, if you don't mind, on how you came to this wisdom and kind of the path, the journey to this area in this space?
So prior to the Art of War, I would say I was at a crossroad in my life. I needed clarity as to why I wasn't getting the things that I wanted, be it professionally, personally. And I started doing the inward work. And so you would call me a self-help junkie. And the only issue there was that I was only working on the parts that I wanted to work on. You know, it wasn't inclusive of everything taking hold, if you will. It was just on the feel-good places. You know, I call myself doing the self-help work. I believed that all conflict was bad conflict. And there was no way around a good outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually prided myself on staying away from conflict, trying to suppress it opposed to confront it. And that didn't work out too well for me. And so it started showing up in my work, my behavior. I found myself in a place, the victim, if you will, because of past experiences being, you know, how shall I say it? Disappointments. You know how disappointments, if we hold on to them, that they could internally do us a disservice. Rejection, like all of those emotions, I was not processing them correctly. And so I would say I was a prime candidate for the Art of War. The way I came into this, my company hired this fabulous coach from the outside because we were in the middle of a transformation. And the transformation was just from moving from a waterfall environment to an agile environment. And the coaches that were in place were not identifying with the dynamics that were going on in the organization. And we were making no traction. And they couldn't get past the obstacles that they had in front of them, primarily with management, owning their part in this failure of making progress, if I can say that. And so they called in this bigwig, who just happened to be Si, you. And you said, give me whatever your hardest project is, and let that be the proof of I know what I'm doing. And of course, that project was a project that I was the project manager on. And real quickly, the situation was me as a project manager in conflict with the resource manager and just fighting over those resources. I was fighting to do my job. The manager was fighting to stay relevant. And so with Agile, and I love Agile because it's building self-managing teams. And I saw that resource managers, you know, they were falling away, falling back, if you will. But if you're not ready to fall back, you'll fight to stay relevant, to stay in the scene, if you will. And so that basically was the issue. And so you came in and you pretty much, you know, took hold in what was going on, and you started to coach me. And so early on, I would say that I was very open, very receptive to how you were coaching me. And it was like I knew what to do, but I wasn't doing it. And just allowing me to get my voice back and stand up and, you know, be present. That's how I came to know the Art of War, by it being used on me first. You introduced that book to me within maybe the second, third session that we had. And I would attribute that to just how open I was to being coached. And from that point, You saw that I had issues with control. I didn't like the unknown. I didn't like chaos. And you wrecked my normal for the next 18 months. And that's something that I will be forever grateful, because you made me comfortable with being uncomfortable. And if I thought we was going left, you took me right. If we was going up, you took us down. I mean, every day I just had to come in and be okay with the unexpected. And that really helped me to get out of my own way. Really, that really helped me get out of my own way. And deal with some of the internal issues that I had. You saw me, and at the bottom of, like, you got me to a place where I felt heard, and all I really wanted was someone to hear what dysfunction I was in and how I was a casualty, if you will. And once I was heard, I was like, okay, that's all I really needed. I just needed someone to hear what I was going through in that particular situation. That project turned around. We did what we couldn't do in a year, we did in 6 months, just by the coaching that you brought to both me and the resource manager. And so they then was like, okay, yeah, we need to implement or integrate his coaching through the whole transformation. And so now you needed help, and you're like saying, hey, let's build an internal coaching program where we're taking the individuals out of the environment to help them coach the environment, because the coaches outside the environment weren't, I'll say, they weren't, I would say, they had no empathy with regards to what we were going through, and so they wasn't speaking from a place of empathy. So in comes the internal coaching group. And it was at that same time that I was like, now that I got my breakthrough, the project was on its way. I said, I can go ahead and leave the company. And mind you, I'm still doing this internal work. So I'm coming to a conclusion that because of my issue with conflict, I was staying in jobs too long, where they didn't value me or appreciate what I bring to the table. I was staying in relationships too long. I was staying in my church too long, all because I didn't like conflict. And so once the art of war magic started to happen, I started seeing, things change in my life, where I was making big decisions to leave my church, big decisions to leave the job, like it's time to move on. And so it was at that point that you told me about the internal coaching program, and that you thought I would be a great value to it. And I was like, but I'm on my way out. I'm leaving. But I had an opportunity to think about it, and all I could think about was, I looked back and I said, you're leaving all of your colleagues that are in that same toxic, dysfunctional type environment. And here you have an opportunity to help them be heard, help them to make changes, not just for the company's sake, but for their own sake. I just saw a lot of opportunities to serve. And so seeing what it did for me, I was a fan already, and I thought it was a great opportunity for me to work alongside of you and just glean from your wisdom. And so that's how I came to the other side of practicing the art of war.
Beautiful, beautiful. So So I want to emphasize a few things and then definitively kind of ask some questions, and we'll get into stories and what have you.
Okay.
And you know my colleagues, of course, Mark Ferraro and Brad Barton, you both gentlemen.
Yes.
Another gentleman, Steve Fastaben, who I don't think you've met, but definitively tremendous folks. There's 3 characteristics that we look for before we initiate or engage in a transformation in whatever form it takes. Enterprise, different areas of the organization or individual coaching at every level. One is the person in pain, experiencing pain? So that's one criteria, very explicitly, because life, respectfully, is a struggle in different ways, and if one isn't aware enough of the pain, then one usually is not going to go into the next piece, which is an openness to change. So that you mentioned openness. So definitely pain, openness is the second one. And then the big one is this last one. And this is the one that we started with in our conversation here. A person needs to care about something other than themselves. Those 3 criteria are actually in chapter 5 in my last book. But those are criteria that Mark and Brad and I, and likewise Steve, have really honed in on. And you exhibited those, and you exhibit those, and it's an opportunity, right, to give back, to contribute. Now I'm rambling, so forgive me.
No, that's awesome. I love the crossing of what I was talking about and what y'all look for. Like, that's awesome. I was a prime candidate.
And the beautiful thing is the right things happen at the right time, right? To have the real impact that they need to. The other thing that you mentioned, which is very powerful, you definitively, there has to be a degree of confidence somewhere, right? That needs to be discovered, right? In one form or another. And everyone has a degree of confidence somewhere. It needs to be discovered, honored, if you will, is the key word. The other thing that you have to have the courage to take a personal risk. You respectfully do that. But here's the big one, Cynthia. And this one, I think this will resonate very deeply. So please, I would love for you to respond to this. Okay. You have confidence to some degree. You have courage to some degree. But the big one is conviction. Can you stay with the struggle?
That's a pill to swallow right there. Conviction, my God. Yeah, conviction will get you out of bed.
And a lot more.
Yes. Wow.
And a lot more.
We all want to know why we're here, right? We want to know what we were born to do, be like your purpose in life. And I knew from my mission statement when I came to the never leaving a person in the state that I find them in, especially if it's not benefiting them or getting them to where they want to be. I think that conviction started way back then. Yeah. And I'm a server. I'm a servant. Let me say that. A servant at heart. And I'm meant to coach people. I'm meant to help them transform. And the moment of transformation is when you actually identify your unintelligent thinking. Okay. Because once you do that, you can't go back to thinking that way. And so transformation happens, especially when it comes to changing one's perspective. I think I'm addicted to people going, like I get it. I live for that. If I can get a person to just challenge their thinking, challenge their perspective, that's what does it for me, because I know that if it's one mind at a time, there's change happening, and it's a change that is a seed form type change. It goes down in, and it'll have rippling effects down the line. You won't see it. You don't have to see it. You just need to know that you're sowing those kind of seeds and believing that, the world's going to be a better place, because, we don't have to save the whole world. But if you do your part of the globe, everybody do their own part of the globe, we can impact change worldwide.
Yeah. And you're emphasizing, you've said it a few times, and I want to make sure that we really hear it. And I want to add to it briefly is you need to be seen. And the beautiful thing is, once you are seen, then you can see others even more so.
That's beautiful. That's a mouthful. Say that again, Si.
Oh, respectfully, only once you are seen can you see others. And it doesn't mean that we're not seen initially, but we, like you said, we cause our own challenges preventing ourselves. But yeah, you have to be seen to see others. It's a very consistent pattern in my experience.
And I would even go to add the desire to want to be seen by others rather than being seen by yourself. And then that speaks to the self-awareness, you know, like, do you see? I think I thought I saw myself, but I only saw a portion of what I thought was myself. Okay. Yeah. But just working with you, I was able to see me in the whole. I had a lot of stuff going on. And to add into that, I was grieving. I don't know if you remember, I had just lost my niece, 27 years old, I think. Yeah. And so you throw grief in. And one thing I see and I feel for people in corporate, just that have jobs. Mm-hmm. We go to work and we bring in things that are outside of work into the job. And you have no idea what people are going through, the challenges that they're dealing with back at home and so forth. And this is where leadership comes into play. You need to see your people. You need to see past the role. You need to see past the deadlines. You need to see past the bottom line. You need to see and you need to see them, because it's only in seeing them, okay, that you're going to be in a better position to serve them.
Yeah.
You know, and cultivate whatever it is that's in them, in spite of what's going on around them. Let me say that.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, we're using the word seen, and fundamentally we're talking about awareness, mindfulness. There's many, many synonyms that would play out in that umbrella term of seen, if you will. So very powerful. So Cynthia, you mentioned the youth, you mentioned some stories of where you've leveraged the wisdom, if you will. Would love to hear some of that.
So this is all in my reflection of after the fact, but I look back and I was like saying, wow, that was a sage move that, you know, just happened. One that comes to mind, every Easter, Good Friday, you have the 7 sayings of Jesus, right? And me being active in the church, I, as a minister, I had one of the sayings, the 7 sayings, to give a short message, maybe 10, 15 minutes long. And the word that I had was, forgive them, for they know not what they've done. And I'm in the midst of standing up in front of a congregation, and I'm using an iPad, you know, with my notes and everything. And the message was being well received, and I felt good. And all of a sudden, the iPad falls off the podium, falls on the floor, it goes black. And my immediate response was to take hold. And taking hold doesn't have to be like a long drawn out thing. It's immediately, like in the moment, right? I took hold and was like, you got a whole bunch of eyes on you. Okay. You can do one or two things. You can panic, or you can actually take this opportunity to show others, this is how you react in a situation like this. Okay. Because clearly I was not expecting me to lose my notes it to go black, the whole nine. And so I nicely reached down, picked the iPad up, got it to turn back on and so forth. I looked up at everybody, gave them a nice warm smile, reiterated something I had just said, and was like, we're going to continue where we left off at. And everybody was like this. Oh, because on their faces, they was like, like they felt for me. And I could have reacted with the, and been just panicky. But I chose not to panic. And I think that was such a sage move, to be able to, how can I win-win out of this? Get my iPad back functioning again so we can move on, but also take an opportunity to show others that, things happen in life, that's unexpected. And you have a choice of how you can react to it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So, and I hear you saying the way, and we say the sage commander as the book, if you will, the wisdom is given to whoever the leader is in that role. It's you, and taking with the greatest integrity possible. You preserve your own integrity by not reacting, but responding in an appropriate way, and then preserve the integrity of the forum.
It was, I look back and I'm like saying, wow, like the old Cynthia would have been like, I think I would have tried to mask the chaos, dance around it or whatever, rather than it is what it is. Let's just stay present. It is what it is, like I'm human.
Yeah.
Pick it up, move on. I like the taking hold of when stuff happens to you before you react.
Yeah.
Get all the moving parts.
And it's truly, and I love the way you just said it, because it's truly an acknowledgement of our own humanity. And it has to start with your own humanity and accepting the reality that you are human, you're not perfect, before you can express humanity in the world and have that impact that you want to have in the world. Very beautifully said.
Look, coming from a control freak, where everything had to be in order, if you will, you can imagine that kind of thing happening. It was like, it's out of control. I don't like out of control. Be like this. Now, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. And you know what? You help other people to react similar to other people when they see it happening. Like, they didn't have to go and gasp or whatnot because I made it okay.
So, and I really appreciate what you, because the Sage Commander, yourself, we're examples. If you would have reacted in a specific way, then other people will replicate that behavior.
And that's one of the things that came up when I said, here's an opportunity to teach, just by being an example. Yeah.
You've heard me use the notion of a reality control cycle and shifting that to, and you used the word earlier, actually, to the virtuous, if you will, reality navigation cycle. Rather than try to control it, over control is dangerous, but we truly navigate.
I actually tried to prepare for the unexpected. How is that even possible? How does one prepare for the unexpected? So, like, just to look at some unintelligent thinking that we can have. I know for me, it came in handy as a project manager, okay, because everything is in order, don't miss a beat, everything's happening according to plan, those kind of things, right? But to a certain extent. And I think the art of war really allowed me to take the skills I had from a project manager perspective, but now add the insight and the wisdom to show up differently you know, not just for myself, but for those that I'm leading, all parts of a project. I mean, we'd be surprised how many people we impact on a day-to-day basis just by how we communicate, how we relate to one another, and to spend so much time at work. So many opportunities to impact lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, and I want to emphasize also, I mean, I'll say ways back, and it is a ways back, you were focused on project management, and you spawned to focus on much more. So definitively, it is a very, very wide lens that you yield today versus back then when we met. And I love every time, I got to tell you, I love every time when you put up your copy and I see how much notes you've taken and then what have you for the Denma translation particularly. So all good things.
So it was interesting because I'm going to say this now, because this right here is a journal that I kept while I was going through my transformation, because I'm going to call it a transformation. And I really encourage my clients to keep a journal. And one of the things that I wrote in my journal, so that you might not remember, but our first few encounters, all you kept asking me is, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? How are you feeling? I was like, get away from me. Like, how am I feeling? You know, like you were going beyond the surface, because when you ask for feelings, okay, that's not what's seen.
Mm-hmm.
That's, take the iceberg, you know, all you see is how people are acting. Okay. But below is their thoughts, their feelings, their beliefs, all of that is under the surface. And when you was asking me, how are you feeling? It was so much to the point where I put it in my journal, like, God just keeps asking me, you know, like, how am I feeling? Like, what's up with him? Like, and I later came to realize that when you can identify how a person's feeling, you can understand how they're showing up.
Yeah.
And if you reverse engineer like the 5 primary drivers, I can see how you're acting and ask, you know, what must she be feeling to act that way? And then what must she be thinking to feel that? And then what must her belief be to come up with those thoughts, you know? And so when I was in it, it didn't feel good. But stepping out and looking at it, I'm like saying, wow, you were hitting below the surface and getting right to the core of how I tick, you know, like, because, and that's where I guess the hurt, the damage, the rejection, the disappointment, all of that was coming up. And it showed me unconsciously I was walking around as a victim,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I thought that was very powerful. And
Yeah.
so just to be able to experience that kind of coaching, but then to be able to now help somebody else have similar breakthroughs and getting to that place of awareness. I love that I can help people get to a place of awareness where it's thought-provoking and self-healing.
It's a gift and opportunity, quite honestly, to be able to do that work. And I want to emphasize a few things that you're pointing us to. And you know me well enough. I mean, I have no problem using the word love in the workplace, and I has a very specific meaning. Sternberg's definition: I'm aware, I'm willing to apply energy, and I'm committed to applying that energy. Those are the 3 tenets that Sternberg's definition emphasizes. But what catches me, I love it when organizations talk about, well, we want to have a humane environment, and then the notion of you can't use the word love because it's not professional dehumanizes us. So we talk in different ways, and we live with residue of dysfunction and habits that plague us in so many ways. And I realize I'm rambling a little bit, But to create if we are truly acknowledging one's humanity, we have to embrace there is a heart, right? There is a head that's involved in the game, and there are hands that are involved in the game to make things happen. And if we don't acknowledge the whole person, then so much magic is lost. And you and I know that. Yes. I'm always intrigued, respectfully, I use the word love, and you've seen me, right? And you've seen me use it with very, very high caliber audiences, I'll say. Well, that's not professional. I said, well, okay, this is who I am. And if you really want to accomplish something, you've got to be able to reflect on who you are as a whole. So I love that you shared that. But definitely, it's an icky feeling at first.
I would say it's private. That was my mindset. It was private. Like, how dare you? Like, you're trying to get to something that I'm not putting on display.
Yeah.
That's how I felt, know, and just that awareness being able to guide me so that I could become aware that, because you know what, to be quite honestly, I don't know whether or not I've had the opportunity to reflect on how I was feeling. We're just reacting and so forth, and not really taking time to, how does that feel? And own our feelings. So yeah, that was a magic moment for me. And it just kept getting better and better and better. You would give me things to do as far as taking the high road, and that had a lot to do with leaving the ego at the door, because I can't very well go to someone and say, I need your help, when I know good and well I don't need their help, but they need to hear that I need their help, that kind of thing. Like, it's those kind of things that make us so much better humans.
Yeah.
Because we can not only get out of our own way, but get out of the way of impacting somebody else. Because it really wasn't about me. It was really more about the project. It was more about, the lives that we were impacting by having this conflict, so.
Yeah. Cynthia, I want to ask for another story if you'll share, but before I go there, before we leave this notion of feeling, I'll say, I'll be very direct about this, not to you, but to the world at large. The difference between when I use the word feeling and where I've seen others use the word feeling is they fester. They fester. They want to talk about feelings and stay there. But from our conversations, we talk about feelings. We understand it. We recognize it. We embrace it. And then we move on to the other pieces that have to enter the equation. The heart is definitively there. Then you got to think about what you're doing, the logic that's there, and then actioning it. So that's a major, major difference. So I definitely understand, and I know why organizations don't like to talk about feelings and people don't, because when that conversation's open up, most people stay there. But for us, no, we acknowledge it and we work with it moving forward. And that's the holistic approach, as you and I would readily say. But I'm rambling.
No, that's a good point. That's a very good point. It's the path through.
Yeah.
Through the feelings. Don't go through them. And so forth. Yeah.
How about other stories? We'd love to hear more stories and dive further into your experience. How you leverage this wisdom?
Another in the moment, because of the transformation. Since we're talking about the transformation at this organization, we set out and said, no complaining. We're going to move forward with this transformation. It's important that the leaders, management, everybody across the board, minimizes, like, no complaining. Like, let's just think positive. Let's stay present, right? And individual, he was one of the leaders. We had a meeting. He missed it. I said, let me take some time, because this is me now in the transformation coach space. And I said, let me take some time and catch him up. And as we're walking to the conference room, all I can hear is he's complaining, like this is never going to work. I don't know why they're doing this and this, that, and the other. And this is where I'm saying that the art of war is just happening, and I don't even realize that it's happening. But I was like saying, this is not for me to own. Like, I could see where this was headed. We were going to get into a conference room, and we were going to just be, and I'm like, this is going to take time and my energy. I said, change your plans, right? Stopped on a dime, change your plan. And we was walking right past his boss's office. Okay. Change your plans. And he's like, I said, come with me. He's like this. All right. And we're heading to his boss's office. I knock, knock. You busy? He's like this. Yeah, little. I said, it won't take long. I came in, I shut the door. This individual is looking at me like, what the heck is about to go on here? And I pretty much explained, to his manager, going to catch him up. He seems to have a lot to say with regards to this, that, and the other, complaining. And how we're all on the path of no complaining and being about this transformation. And immediately the manager took the lead, okay, and dealt with his subordinate, okay, to the point of, listen, there's no place for that. And I took it off of me and gave it back to where the ownership belonged, and allowed the manager to manage his employee, okay? And they got to a good understanding. And I was like, okay, my job is done here. And can I tell you, I was like this. The first thing that came to my mind was I did a sigh. Because the unexpected. And I didn't go and run and find different things in the environment to get this point across. I used what was there. And what was there was that individual. His boss's office was right there. And I was like, you know what? We're going to the boss's office and let's wrap this up right here and now. Because if it's not dealt with at that level, it was going to be just for that time and again and again. And the potential of him influencing other people. I saw that was an issue, could be an issue, and so forth. So I was quite pleased with that experience there, and did not have no more problems with that individual at all. I mean, when we got into conversations, whatever, he knew that I was not the one to, show out around, basically, because I was going to call him out on it.
Yeah. So I love the way you're describing it. There's a few pieces that tie actually to the previous conversation that we were having to this experience, if you will. And I'm going to add a little bit of color, and please guide me if I miss something or what have you, or if I'm misstating something. When people embrace a victim mentality, they'll complain. Generally, they'll complain because I'm a victim, so I got to complain. So what's interesting is we use the word complain. But really what we're dealing with is a tension. There's a conflict there. That's why I'm complaining. Something doesn't work for me. Yeah. I'm complaining because I need to be seen, right? And I need to put this out there, this tension. So what you did was you helped them go through it versus avoid it or just put it out there to create more messiness. And again, please correct me if I'm missing something.
No, you're on point.
And additionally, when we're saying, don't complain. What we're really saying is work through the conflict, work through the challenges, work through the tensions, as reality is a collection of tensions. So that adds a little bit of color to what you said. But I want to also call out what you did was very powerful because you took whole. You didn't try to destroy the individual. You didn't try to ignore the individual, but you took as whole as possible. And then what you did in the moment was really what the individual was thinking is ordinarily she's going to have a conversation with me. You did the extraordinary by guiding it into a different conversation, very much rooted in the art of war, emerging from the subconscious into the conscious and playing out. I mean, so I'm adding a lot of color, but there's a lot happening in what you do.
You summed it up nicely because that is actually what their issue was. And I think it helped him to better position himself in that transformation because he could have cut himself off from the transformation because it was really if you're not in it, if you're not for it, we're getting rid of you. We're not carrying no dead weight, you know, to the whole point. So it was beneficial to him. It was a win-win for him as well, because he was able to adjust his position, how he's showing up, you know, so that, you know, his job wasn't on the line.
Yeah. And I love what you just said, because it's been, there is so much humanity that is present in the art of war. And that is a great manifestation of the humanity that you expressed in working with that individual and working with the conflict and the tension that resided there. And I love what you do. I'll put it that way. So, and again, I've seen you do magic. So this is the perfect example. So I know we have a little bit of time left, and can you give us an example from the work with the youth in what you're doing there, Cynthia?
Okay. I had the pleasure to get into the school system this past year, and it started out subbing because I was curious. I'm like saying, you know, everybody's talking about the school system and teachers, and you know, and I said, in order for me to really take hold, I want to get in there and kind of observe it for myself. And so 7th and 8th graders.
Nice.
And it started with high schoolers, and I'm like, okay. And then it moved to 7th and 8th graders, and I found, observing them, they're very reactive. They're like little ticking time bombs, just ready to just blow, right? And I put myself in a position where I want to be able for them to talk to me and so forth, because like I said, I like challenging their thinking, if you will. And so having the opportunity to sit with them and to kind of get them to ground themselves. Okay, this is what I find that I'm doing with them on a one-on-one basis. As I encounter them, if they've just been in a fight or some altercation, or there's a conflict that's they're dealing with, I love that I'm in a position to help them reflect on it. Let's talk about it. Let's, you know, so that they could take hold. What's your part in it? What's the other person's part in it? You know, what's the outcome? How could you have made the outcome different? And they're like, yeah, I guess I could have did that. Yeah, okay. And it's just a matter of teaching them how to breathe. Okay, like take a moment, do the countdown, because that whole 2 states, either in a primal or a powerful state, okay, and primal are all the emotions that don't feel good, okay, and the powerful is all your good feelings, okay, but it's the powerful state when all of your brain is active, your intelligence, your creativity, all of that. When you're in a primal state, it shuts down. And so to see our youth in a primal state, and I mean, it's an ebb and flow, you know, you go back and forth. The key is how to get out of a primal state as quick as possible. Get yourself back into a powerful state and move on, okay? To see them in a primal state so much, it pulled on my heartstrings, if you will. And so the school actually did some mindfulness. They had a person come in and during homeroom, let's do, you know, some breathing, 3 deep breaths, put your feet on the floor, you know, like sit up nice and straight. And throughout the day, I asked the different youth, you know, the students, you know, how'd that work for you? You know, how did you enjoy that? Some was like, yeah, I actually did it. And boy, it a whole like a weight lifted up off of me. And I was like, really? And it showed me side that our youth, our young people are dealing with so much. We have no idea. The same thing that adults are dealing with at home and coming to work with, our youth, okay, are dealing with those same dynamics at home and are trying to come to school, okay, with the weight of the world on them. Okay, I'm kind of getting choked up because, you know,
Yeah.
it's pulling at my heartstrings. Okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And to be able to help them process, you know, like it would be in your best interest, back to the win-win. It would
Mhm.
be in your best interest, you know, to learn how to get yourself out of a primal state and back into a powerful state before you react.
Yeah.
And I believe they would be calling that responding. Okay. And so they are very open.
Mhm.
And I actually volunteered to this coming school year, after school. I'm going to be doing my sister's keeper. It's an after
Beautiful.
school program for 7th and 8th grade girls, where I get to pour into them on a weekly basis to support them, challenge them, and equip them with the tools that they need to navigate their thought life, but also their feelings, right?
Yeah.
And because I'm not a teacher, there's no, you know, oh, you know, I think it might affect my grade, you know, if I'm open or whatnot. But I just, we can't leave them at bay. And I say that because most of my coaching clients now are over 40
Mhm.
years of age, if you will. And the light bulb went on. Why wait until you're 40 to start
That's right.
undoing the damage that was done by all the meanings you gave your past experiences? Okay, that's holding you back now. Let's go and get it as young as we can. Okay,
Yeah.
because if you can start getting beliefs or creating your belief system as early as 5 years old, then I say the sooner the better to be able to equip individuals to navigate that thought life and their beliefs and how they show up. So I'm really excited about this coming year.
That's very powerful. That's very, very talk about impact, if you will, exactly like you're describing, Cynthia. And I love the reference to a time bomb, because you got a time bomb, you can address it if you closer to the source versus let it get to the workplace, and you have multiple time bombs in the workplace now with people that are just walking around ready to explode. I love what you described in terms of grounding. And I think one of the magic, and I really want to emphasize it, it's how you approach that grounding. I love that you just demonstrated what I said earlier: asking penetrating questions, right? Detecting unstated assumptions, and managing conflict with diverse person. You literally just demonstrated that very briefly for us in that example. So thank you for that.
I'm very comfortable in that environment.
Yeah.
And I think the art of war equips me to embrace that environment. Most people will shy off with working with the youth because of that very fact that you don't know what you're going to get, you know, but I'm like, bring it on, because it's the courage to confront it.
Yeah.
Confront the conflict that might be going on in them. And really it's to save a child. That's really what the heart of the matter is, to save a child.
And the potential damage that can be done by that child as they grow in the world. And Cynthia, you mentioned 3 words. I don't want to lose them because I want to emphasize them, if you will. You mentioned them. You said you support, you challenge, and you equip. And you use those 3 words very explicitly. And I think though that description is such a powerful metaphor or expression. Let me rephrase that. That is a powerful expression of what the art of war allows you to do. It really allows you to support, it allows you to challenge, and allows you to equip, if you will, yourself and others in the work that you do. So I mean, it's beautifully summarized in how you described it.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. My dear friend, we can go on for hours, as you already know. So, number one, I want to thank you for being here tremendously. And I'm hoping we'll do more together than not.
Yes.
And you know, I really I'm hoping we'll do that. And I want to make sure that you have an opportunity, if you will, to really leave us with what you want to leave us. So if there's one thing, if you will, that you suggest our audience members take away or put into practice from our conversation, what would it be, my good friend?
In this ever-changing world, knowing that we are the sum of our parts, like the more time we spend in self-awareness, doing the actual work on ourselves, the more we'll be more impactful to the external environments around us. So it's how you show up, interact with people. It really all starts with you, because when people get offended or whatever, it's all because of what's going on in them. Okay. If somebody has an issue with you, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the individual that has the issue with you and how they're processing it. Okay. I think leaders, there's a quote that leaders should be making more leaders, not more followers, is just something to keep in the back of your mind, because we all have that opportunity to be an example. And I think the Art of War gives us that opportunity to be an example in this world. And so it all starts with you. It all starts with you. Keep that in the back of your mind. Yeah. And Wayne Dyer says, my favorite quote, change the way you look at things and the things you change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. It's all about perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And, as you're talking, I'm reflecting, we can easily mention quotes from Dr. King very readily, right? We can very, very readily mention quotes there. And the one that immediately hit me is Gandhi. If you will be the change that you wish to see in the world. And you truly exemplify it.
Amen.
My dear friend, thank you for being here and spending the time with us. We look forward to more conversations and some interesting things where the future takes us. But by all means, tremendous gratitude for you making the time to be with us today.
Si, I will forever be grateful. Thank you so much for not only this opportunity today, but across the board, just introducing me to the Art of War and its impact on my life and that rippling effect that it has. I really hope it makes you proud. So I appreciate and I'm grateful for you.
Yeah, likewise. I can sleep well knowing that Cynthia's out in the world. Let me put it that way. So thank you, my good friend. Until next time, thank you, Cynthia. And thank you for all. Thank you so much. And thank you for all who've joined us. By all means, you know who Cynthia is. You reach out to her if you have thoughts. A tremendous human being and a tremendous soul. Thank you all around. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Si.